Today's module is Module 8, Audit Preparation, Inspections, and Continuous Improvement, ensuring excellence through evaluation and enhancement. As noted, this is approved for 2 credits of CE through the AAFP. So digging into audits and inspections. What are audits and inspections? Audits are systematic evaluation of processes, policies, and procedures. They can be internal or external reviews conducted to ensure compliance as well as quality. Inspections are formal evaluations conducted by regulatory or accrediting bodies such as CMS, CAP, or COLA. They focus on adherence to standards and operational effectiveness. So why are these important? They ensure compliance with CLIA regulations and other relevant standards. They promote continuous quality improvement and identify and mitigate risks before they lead to non-compliance or errors. And this can all help build trust with patients, staff, and regulators. Some types of audits. Internal audits. These are conducted by laboratory staff or independent internal teams. They focus on internal client compliance and improvement opportunities. These are often opportunities for you to improve your laboratory before they become a compliance issue. Typically, you go through a checklist much similar to an external audit, and you go try to do your best to imitate an external audit. That way you can identify gaps and hopefully close up any non-compliance areas. And external audits. These are performed by external entities like accrediting organizations or consultants. They offer impartial assessments and regulatory inspections. These are conducted by bodies like CMS to evaluate compliance with legal standards. Audits, inspections, and continuous improvement are not isolated processes, but interconnected elements of a strong laboratory quality management system. Audits provide proactive opportunities to identify gaps, enhance compliance, and drive best practices before regulatory inspections occur. So what are internal audits? These are a self-assessment process performed by the laboratory that evaluates compliance with CLIA standards, accreditation requirements, and internal policies. These are typically conducted on a schedule, so quarterly, annually, such and so forth. This doesn't have to be done at one time. Sometimes you can do an internal audit periodically. You can do it in pieces. You can do it quarterly, and you can chunk it up into sections. An audit, the accreditation process or the accreditation manual for an audit, it can be pretty long. It can be pretty lengthy, especially if you have multiple test systems. So you can break it up into pieces. You can do quarterly assessments. So say you have tox, blood, and molecular. Maybe you want to break it up into you do tox in the first quarter, and then blood in the second quarter, and then molecular sometime in the third. Your molecular department could be big enough that you'd want to break that down as well. You can have instances where you have NGS testing, sequencing for cancers, PGX testing, and infectious testing. So you can have different aspects, and you might be a burden. You might not have the staffing to do all this testing, do all this auditing all at the same time. So you may need to break it down into pieces, so make it into chunks, so that way the staff aren't burdened and aren't overwhelmed whenever they are dealing with this. So that can be one way. If you have, especially staffing this can help chunk it down and make it a lot more feasible. It can also make feedback faster. So if you do it only quarterly, then you can do it that way and get feedback much faster. What are some benefits of internal audits? Early detection of issues. They help identify and resolve non-compliance areas before external inspections. It's always good to detect your issues and to identify any issues you might have before it's crunch time. Quality improvement. You can pinpoint inefficiencies or gaps in procedures to enhance operations. It's always important to identify these issues as well as engage staff. It encourages accountability and ownership among team members and staff. So it's important to have this buy-in. If everyone is involved in preparation for the internal audits and there's good transparency. Everyone knows that we're working towards the same quality goals, and it's from the top down, the ownership through the management all the way to the staff. The staff can have ownership and accountability. That's very important. You have the opportunity to encourage your staff to be involved in quality. Internal audits are a great opportunity vehicle for that. Some other benefits include inspection readiness. Maintaining ongoing compliance helps avoid surprises during external reviews. It's no surprise that what you go over in the internal audit is also going to be what's reviewed in the external audits. So it's like practice. You're practicing for the big game. The more practice you get in, the more reps you get in, the more likely your laboratory is going to be efficient and effective during the big game. And cost savings. It helps prevent costly penalties and corrective actions through corrective monitoring. It's always important to improve your efficiency and improve your quality because it's going to have a cost in the long run. You pay for quality one way or the other. You either pay for it now by doing better work and you have improved efficiencies, or you pay for it by having poor efficiency and even penalties issued by CLIA. So you pay for it one way or the other. It just depends on how you want to pay down that cost of ignorance. What are some key focus areas for internal audits? Personnel qualifications and competency records. This is where in an external audit they'll always focus in on that first. So it's important to make sure on the internal audits that you have all of this knocked down. This is your opportunity to identify any issues in personnel qualifications and competency. It's always important to keep updating your competency, and this is a good opportunity to make sure that your competency updates. Remember, when you first initially hire, you have to do a competency. You have to do a competency of 6 months, and then a competency annually after that. So if a staff member was already done a 6 months, then they don't have to do 6 months again. They only required to do annual. But it's important to make sure that you are monitoring and maintaining those competency documents. Equipment calibration and maintenance logs. This is a good opportunity to go over, make sure that everything is going on when it comes to maintenance. Maintenance logs are being documented, everything is signed and initialed, and everything's being completed. If there's any maintenance that is being missed or any calibration, any equipment that needs calibrated, such as centrifuges or hoods, this is a great opportunity to knock that out before you have an external audit. And validation and verification of tests. You have any validations of any new testing, verifications if it's an FDA approved test, as well as lot-to-lot verification of your QCs. It's always important to make sure that you are doing your lot-to-lot verification. This is a good opportunity here to ensure that's been occurring. Quality control and quality assurance practices. The daily quality control should be run, and it should be documented using either LJ charts, Living Jettings, or some other tracking metric, as well as your quality assurance. However you do your quality assurance, I prefer to do monthly quality assurance, but some laboratories do quarterly. However your laboratory documents quality assurance, it is important to make sure that during the internal audit that these practices are being accomplished. These are all instances, these are all things that can easily fall behind and fall to the wayside. Documentation is one of the most documented compliance issues. Documentation is the easiest thing to forget because everything else has a check, everything else has a report, everything else has importance. Quality can sometimes slip through the cracks, especially when you get really busy. Sometimes quality can be the first thing to fall. It's important to make sure that that does not happen. And documentation, completeness, and accuracy. It's important to make sure that all your documentation is complete because according to CLIA, if it wasn't documented, it did not happen. It doesn't matter how great your practice is, how great your processes are. If it's not documented, then there's no evidence that it occurred. So make sure that all your logs are filled out, everywhere there's a box that needs to be checked, everywhere that there's a process that needs to be done, documented, initial, signed, dated, make sure all of that is completed. So how do you prepare for a regulatory inspection? Why preparation is crucial. Regulatory inspections ensure compliance with CLIA and other applicable standards. Effective preparation minimizes stress and disruptions to the lab. It is always stressful when an inspector walks in. Whether it's known or unknown that an inspector is coming, it can be stressful. It's important too, the more prepared you are, the more likely you are to experience less stress. If you know what you're supposed to be doing and you've practiced and you know you've had the internal audits and you're prepared, then you're going to be much less stressed. And it's going to cause a much less disruption of your workflow. If everybody's scrambling around trying to find documentation and no one's actually doing work, that's going to disrupt your workflow for the day. And it demonstrates the lab's commitment to quality and compliance. It's important to have the public's trust, have your clients' trust that you're doing everything you can to have quality results and quality conditions. So inspections help ensure that quality and that compliance. By complying with your regulatory bodies, it shows that you are providing accurate and detailed results. Some key steps for inspection readiness. Organize your documentation. Ensure that all records are complete, accurate, and readily accessible. This can be in physical form in binders, or it can be digitally. Either way, however you do it, it just needs to be readily accessible. Key documents include SOPs, QC logs, training records, and validation data. Conduct mock inspections. Simulate a regulatory inspection to identify gaps and refine processes. I feel as a lab director is, especially if you are not a on-site lab director, meaning you're not there at all times. If you are part-time and you're coming to the laboratory quarterly or semi-annually, I think it's a great idea to come in and basically pretend that you're an inspector. Pretend you're coming in as a surprise inspection. Your technical staff can know you're a consultant, but it's good to come in and basically play devil's advocate. Act like you're an inspector. Go through all the documentation, ensure that everything is up to date, and ask for things. Ask, where's the competency? Where's this? Where's the training logs? Why hasn't this been signed? When was the last time you ran this quality check? When was the last time maintenance was done? When was the last time this was inspected? When was the last time your pipettes were calibrated? Go in and really go through and ask questions, because their staff knows, and if your staff understands the processes, they can answer them on the fly. And if not, then that's a good opportunity for your technical supervisor to train up and to redo competency, redo refreshers and things like that. Also, staff training and awareness. Educate your staff on inspection protocols and their roles during inspection. Practice clear and concise communication of the processes. You can do this also with the surprise inspections to help them understand what their roles are during inspection, whether their staff is testing personnel or whether they're technical personnel, supervisor personnel, things of that nature. It's important for the staff to understand what is their role during inspections, and so that way they're aware and they're prepared for dealing with the stress of the inspection, the disruptions of the inspection, and just being overall showing the documentation of the process. And review corrective actions. Ensure all previously identified deficiencies are resolved and documented. This is important. Reoccurring deficiencies are always an issue. If you have reoccurring deficiencies, that is actually more, that increases the weight of the deficiency, because that means you are not actually performing corrective action, you're not actually improving things like you should. The whole purpose of this is to constantly improve, and if you are having the same issue over and over again, then you're not truly improving, you're not learning from these exercises. Common areas of focus: personnel files, test validation and proficiency testing, QC and QA programs, equipment calibration and maintenance, pre-analytical, analytical, and post-analytical processes. This is often going to be dug into by the SOPs. The SOPs will list out the pre-analytical, the analytical, and the post-analytical processes. So from beginning to end, the sample's life through the laboratory should be documented, and we should know overall what a sample will experience as it goes through the laboratory. That is one major area of focus for regulatory inspections. That's why they focus on personnel files, your validations, and then your SOPs. That includes that's where it ties that in. Those are the three-headed monster for regulatory inspections, but all of them umbrella out into pieces. So your pre-analytical processes bleed out into the QA, QC programs, as well as maintenance and calibration. Your validations kind of bleed into your proficiency, and then of course your personnel files are based kind of their own little entity. The last words The goal is to turn data into information and information into insight. Data, data, data. Data drives everything. The more data you take in, the more data you have, the more you can do with that data, and the more things you can improve. If something is measured, it is going to improve. If you're measuring something, you're observing something, you're going to make improvements on it. So turn that data into information and turn that information into insight.